Hi, bestie. Welcome back. Thank you for being here. I love you, and I'm so grateful for you coming back every week. Today's episode, I'm like nervous. I literally recorded it 2 times yesterday, and then I scrapped it right before it was almost done because I'm like talking about people that I know from my past that like literally I know for a fact follow me on TikTok, and like some have even reached out to me. So like it just makes me feel like a little bit awkward because I'm like literally talking. I don't have a problem talking about like guys in my life, but it makes me feel awkward talking about like past friends or past roommates, which is what I will be doing today. Basically, I have been thinking a lot about roommates recently because if you have me on Snap, I think I've really only talked about it on Snap, but I've kind of been thinking about my next steps for next year. If you didn't know, I moved to LA in March, which is crazy. It's been like how many months? Like 7 months now. And I love my apartment. It's beautiful. It's got great appliances and great amenities, and it's like small. So it feels like a small community, like kind of everyone knows each other. That being said, I feel like I'm really overpaying for this apartment, like crazy. Like between you and me, this apartment is $5,700 a month, which is like disgusting. And first of all, it is so much for rent. And second of all, I do not think it's worth $5,700 because it's just like these apartments, first of all, are not built well at all. For example, the other night I was on the phone with my friend and then I heard this really loud crack in my ceiling, and I was like in bed and my lights were off and I was like, whoa, I just heard like the loudest crack in my ceiling, but like didn't really think anything of it. The next morning I wake up and I look and there's a literal crack going from my ceiling down to my window. So I go and tell the property manager, and this is very common here. I think for paying this much in rent, problems should get resolved quicker, but I told him 2 weeks ago about this crack in my ceiling, and he even told me, oh my god, like yeah, that's concerning because the person who lives directly below me, I guess, has also been complaining about hearing weird sounds in their walls and weird cracks, and he hasn't come to look at it yet. So, I mean, I just don't think for that amount of rent, my apartment should be like cracking and crumbling. And also like, there's just like other things, like you're paying for the amenities here. And while I said they're great when they work. Like, for example, we have a hot tub, but it's not hot, like it's broken and they won't fix it. And that's like, you know, like obviously whatever, don't need a hot tub, fine. But it's just my point being, like, I don't want to sound like a brat and say like, oh my god, like the hot tub doesn't even work. But like, I mean, it's like included in the rent price. This whole point being, I don't think I'm going to renew my lease here because also, oh my god, if you followed me on TikTok when I first moved in here, the property manager who lives here is a major freak. Just to give you kind of his vibe, he's like a guitarist who like has like a bunch of family money and was just given this building to property manage because like no one else wanted to do it and he doesn't want to do it. So he hates being a property manager. Like I'm telling you, this man hates it. He also has like a weird vibe. Like he's asked like very young girls who like just turned like 18, 19 to go on dates with him before. He's just weird. And whenever you text him, he just acts like you're bothering him. When I first moved here, my downstairs neighbors were like chain smoking, and I made TikToks about this. And as I said, I don't think the apartment building itself is built well because the scent of cigarette smoke like wafted into my apartment so strongly that it smelled like I was chain smoking cigarettes in my apartment, which is like just so gross. And I told him about it. I remember the first time I texted him about it, and this is like the first time I had ever really been in communication with him. I was like, hey, like my neighbors are smoking below. Can you like please do something about this? Because it's a non-smoking building and it's actually illegal. Like I looked up like the ordinance in LA and in the specific area, like it's literally illegal. He texted me back something so weird and so cryptic. Wait, hold on. I have to find the text message because it was just outrageous. Okay, I found the text message. I basically was like, we were in a whole argument about whether the neighbors were smoking or not because he claimed they weren't, but like he's never here. How would he possibly know that? And I was like, I'm positive it's the unit below me. And he goes, I'll send out a message to them. I hope it's them and I'm not just blaming someone with like multiple smiley faces. And that's when I got that message, I was like, okay, he's like weird. Anyway, there's just been like a lot of weird drama with the property manager. He's got a weird vibe. The apartment, I think, is definitely overpriced. And there's also like a lot of drama in the building itself because it's like a small building. So anyway, like sometimes it feels like you're like living in a soap opera here. So as much as I love this apartment, I think I'm going to move because I also think like I'd like to ideally pay less rent next year. And I think like if I did pay the same amount of rent next year, like I could be living in like a house, like a pretty house, and not an apartment that's crumbling. I'd like my rent to go further if I'm going to really dish out that much rent, is the whole point being. To circle this all back to roommates, which is what I'm going to talk to you about today because I've had like some horror roommates. I have lived alone for the past 5 years, I think, and I love living alone. I thrive on living alone, and I'm going to do another episode on that because I get a lot of questions about like how to be okay with being alone. Like I love being alone. I find it so peaceful. When I first moved into my first apartment by myself, I was like so freaked out. I remember I moved to New York and I had a studio in Brooklyn in Boerum Hill. And when I got dropped off and like it was officially just me in the apartment, it was so weird because I'd never lived by myself before. And it was also in a new city where I knew no one. So I felt very like lonely and isolated, and it took me a long time to like get accustomed to living alone and learn how to like living alone. So I can totally talk to you about that in another episode. But yeah, I've lived alone and now I love it. And like I like being able to wake up in the morning and like no one else is in the kitchen and like no one else is talking, and like I like quiet. I like having everything to myself. I'm like a major, massive control freak. And honestly, like I've had some horror roommate stories and I'm going to talk to you about them because they're insane. But you know what? I'll hold myself accountable. I'm honestly probably not that fun to live with myself because I am a control freak and I like things to be clean and perfect at all times and like very orderly, and I'm very particular about things, and you know, I'll own up to it, but like I know myself and I recognize that, and I know I should just like not live with anyone. But I have a friend who also lives in this building whose lease is also ending like a month or two after mine, and we were just talking about it and like looking on Zillow, and if we put like our two rent budgets together, we could get like an insane, beautiful home. And so we've like kind of been talking about that, but I still don't really fully know, just because I don't know. I don't do well living with literally anyone, and I fully own up to that. And also, I just like, I've never had a good roommate experience, literally ever. Okay, so the first time I ever had a roommate was obviously freshman year of college. This was my first time living away from home, so that was freaky in itself because I told you before, I get so homesick, and like when my parents dropped me off at my dorm, even though it was only an hour away from home, I was like a mess. When I first moved into my freshman dorm, I cried like every night for like 2 weeks and didn't think I ever wouldn't feel homesick, and it was like awful, and I just desperately wanted to like go home and like go to a community college like in my hometown because I felt so uncomfortable. And I was matched with a random roommate, and honestly, like I feel bad about this situation. This was like not like a crazy roommate. This was just like a normal college roommate. I think I was in a very bad mental state my freshman year, as you know, if you listen to the podcast about like my whole high school freshman year journey. And I think I was a little unfair to her. I lived in that dorm for maybe a month, and then I think I like literally moved out, and I heard later that she was like sad about that, and that makes me feel bad. But there was no like crazy drama. I just was not used to sharing a space with someone, let alone a tiny room. And I think our main issue was she liked to pregame in our room, and that was like definitely not my vibe. I would like leave to go pregame, and I think like, I don't know, it's awkward, like especially like if there's a night where you're not going out and people are like pre-gaming in your room, it's just annoying. And I remember like one night I woke up to her literally giving someone like a blowjob, like a foot away from my bed, like not even like in her bed, like literally in the middle of the room, like in front of my bed. And I was just kind of like, what the hell? So there were just like small things like that and like weird passive aggressions. And we started out as friends and then like kind of drifted apart because of all these weird passive aggressions. So then one day I kind of randomly moved out. I never officially moved out. At the time, I felt like I had like the craziest roommate and it was awful. But like, I think in retrospect, I can't even really remember any stories that really stick out except for the blowjob story. I think it was more just college roommate, typical drama, feeling uncomfortable, like being away from home and like disputes over like whether we treat the dorm as a pregame spot or not. And also on top of that, I was just like mentally unwell. But then I transferred from that school to Suffolk University in Boston the next year. And this is when I had the craziest roommate of my entire life. This was like out of a Lifetime movie. Like Celia and I used to joke that we thought she was going to kill us, which that's dramatic. And if you're listening to this, if this is you listening to this, obviously this is my side of the story. You have your side of the story and I'm sorry. I hope you're doing well. Basically, Celia and I both transferred to Suffolk University our sophomore year, and we were going to live together. But Celia and I are very different. I like to have everything, as I told you, I'm a control freak, and I like to have everything set in order, ready to go like months beforehand. Whereas Celia like will find a place like the day before she needs one. And so she was on Nantucket, like not able to go in Boston and tour apartments and like wasn't ready to decide on an apartment anyway. And she just didn't want to decide on one. And I wanted to, so I was like, okay, well, let's just like not live together then, because also like they always say like don't live with your best friend, even though we did end up living together senior year and it was like so fun. I met this girl on Suffolk University roommate page, and when we met, like we were like texting a little bit before, and like she seemed like totally normal and nice, and I was like, okay. And like also my roommate doesn't need to be my best friend, I just need to find someone to share rent with. We each had like $1,000 budget, I think. So we had like $2,000 to put together to find a apartment. And we met when we started going apartment hunting, and like, yeah, she seemed normal, nice enough. I remember like when my mom and I shook her mom's hands, her mom like made a point to like wipe her hand off on her pants after we shook her hand, which was, you know, interesting if that gives you kind of like their vibe. But they were like nice enough. And we ended up settling on this apartment in Beacon Hill. We really wanted to live in Beacon Hill, and we found this super cute apartment on Cambridge Street. It was above a pizza place, and it had this cute little kitchen. It had nice lighting. But the problem with the apartment was it was a 1-bedroom. But I kind of was like, I already lived in a dorm, and this is like an apartment where you can kind of separate yourself. So we decided a 1-bedroom would be totally okay, and we would just get 2 cute little twin beds, matching nightstands, matching lamps, and matching comforters, and share the space because it's really just where we would be sleeping. That was where we went really wrong. I think maybe it would not have gone as poorly if we had not shared a room. After we signed the lease on this apartment, the next month we're like getting things ready, so excited, and I'm just thrilled to be moving into my first apartment because this was my first time living in like a real apartment. It gets to move-in day and we move in, things go smoothly. She's like being like a little stressy, and this is mean, okay? But I remember like when we moved in, she was like, oh my God, like we are totally adulting now. And I was like, oh, okay. The fact that you're saying things like we're adulting, I feel like our personalities are not totally gonna match. But whatever, we move all our furniture in, and then parents drop me off. I'm sure I cried because I always cry when my parents leave. I don't really remember, but like I'm sure I definitely cried. And then Celia comes over and meets us to see the apartment and also like have like a little girls' drink night in because we didn't really have an option to go out because we were 19. And we did get fake IDs, but we didn't have fakes at this point. And our fake IDs like did not work. They were really, really bad. But we made like frozen margaritas and we were all drinking them, like having a good time. I think I still have the picture on my phone. And then I don't know if it was me or Celia, but one of us was like, oh, like, let's have a rum and Coke. And she like my roommate gets so stern with us and so serious and gives us an entire lecture on the dangers of mixing alcohol. And while, you definitely get like a worse hangover drinking like a rum-based drink and a tequila-based drink, I wouldn't say it's like so dangerous that we need to be lectured. We were 19. Now would I like have rum and tequila in one night? No, because I know that like, especially because I'm 26, I got like severe hangovers now, like I just wouldn't. But it wasn't like a dangerous thing. And I remember Celia and I just like kind of looked at each other and we were like, what the hell? Because she got like so stern and aggressive and like it just like the vibe really shifted. So we stuck to tequila, and me and my roommate had both invited like a few other friends over, and I had invited a few of my guy friends who happened to skateboard. And so when they came over, they got there before her friends. And when they came over, they brought their skateboards inside. And the second like she saw them, she pulled me aside and was like, your friends need to leave right now. And I was like, okay, like I was gonna obviously like respect that because I mean, if she felt uncomfortable, like whatever, but I was just like, why do they need to go? She said that the fact that they had skateboards like made her very uncomfortable and their vibe made her uncomfortable, so they had to go. And these guys were like so nice and so respectful. They just happened to skate. So that was just like weird as hell. Then her friends show up later, and this is where the night just got so much weirder. So her friends get there and like we're all like drinking, having a good time. Everyone's tipsy, everyone's like a little bit drunk. And I don't even remember this because it was such a like non-issue and like it wasn't any monumental moment or situation. But I guess I was wearing like a camisole and like pajama pants because I was at home and it was just like two of her like girlfriends. And I guess like at one point in the night, I had a nip slip that I like quickly recovered from and like pulled my shirt up, which by the way, like nip slips happen all the time. I mean, at the beach, I have like a nip slip every 2 seconds, and it's not like I'm trying to show off my nipples. If you know me in real life, you know my boobs are my biggest insecurity. And to go even further, I hate my nipples. Like they are my biggest insecurity in the whole world. So I would never be like trying to flaunt my nipples in front of my new roommate's friends. And I just didn't think anything of it. I just went to bed like a little later on. And the next morning I woke up at like 7 a.m. to Celia like shaking me awake. And I was like, what the hell, bro? Like, why are you waking me up right now? And I am like a very unconfrontational person, and I'm very like I can get awkward in situations like that. But Celia is like even worse if it's possible. She is like way worse than me, which is really saying a lot. We're both very like awkward, non-confrontational people. And she woke me up and she was like, your roommate like wants to have like a group meeting about last night. And I was like, a group meeting about last night? Like, what do you even mean? And if you're getting the theme, by the way, we had been living together for less than 12 hours, and this was the second lecture within that 12 hours. And she calls us all into the room and is like, what happened last night can never happen again. It was so inappropriate and I'm so upset about it. And she was like, we need to discuss this and ensure that your behavior never happens again. And I was like, what behavior? And the whole argument and whole reason she woke me up at 7 a.m. was because she was so upset that I had a nip slip. And I was like, I was truly blown away. Celia and I like looked at each other and we were like, what the hell is going on? But yeah, she like we got in like actual, I mean, I just like apologized obviously because like I had to live with this girl for the next year, and like if my nip slip made her that uncomfortable, like it wasn't intentional, but I was also like in my own home and like it just like didn't mean for it to happen. But we move on, I guess, and I'm feeling like kind of like, oh my God, this is gonna be like a weird year. But we move on, and I think later in the day I had to go to the hardware store for something. And so first of all, we live in Beacon Hill. It's broad daylight. The hardware store is like 200 feet away from our apartment. So I like tell her, oh, I'm gonna head out and go to the hardware store. And she's like, okay, well, please text me when you get there, text me when you check out, text me when you're walking back. And I was like, on one hand, while it's like nice to have like, you know, roommate like safety protocol, on the other hand, it's broad daylight. I'm going 200 feet away, and like I don't need to tell you where I am at every moment. Like I might go to the hardware store and then get a coffee. Like who knows? So I head on my merry way, and then my dad calls me. So I'm on the phone with my dad, and I'm picking up like nails or something from the hardware store. And I head back to the apartment. I was probably gone 15 minutes. And when I get back, this is now the third lecture of the day. She was so angry with me and so upset and was like, I was worried sick. Why did you not text me where you were? But like, I was literally gone for 10, 15 minutes. And I mean, it'd be one thing if we lived in like a sketchy neighborhood and I was like going for like a mile walk at 2 a.m. But it was like broad daylight and arguably like the safest neighborhood in Boston. Like it's like a family. If you live in Boston or have been to Boston, you know, like Beacon Hill is like a very safe family neighborhood. So from then on, I just like obviously started to get like weird vibes from her, but I was trying to power through. There are other weird things that happened. Like I remember one time, I think this was also like, must have been the first week we lived there, we had Spectrum come to install Wi-Fi, and she started like sobbing when the Wi-Fi guy got there and like pulled me aside, and I was like, what's going on? And she was like, well, I don't think that's like a real Wi-Fi guy. I think it's someone posing as a Wi-Fi guy. You know, I'm like so scared of being kidnapped and like whatever. But this guy was in a full Spectrum like gear setup. Like he had the shirt on, he had the Wi-Fi like router with him and like everything to install it. He was just installing the Wi-Fi like a typical Wi-Fi guy would do. And he, like when we looked outside, like I could see like the Spectrum like van that they show up in. So I was like, I mean, like it's good to be cautious, but like I just don't think that warranted sobbing over. And I think like the issue was maybe I think this was her first time ever living alone at all. I think her first year of college, because she also transferred to Suffolk. I think her first year she lived at home or something. So I think maybe she just was nervous to be living by herself. And like I can empathize with that, and I can empathize in general with the situation, but there were just one too many weird things. But we try to stay friends. We don't really like go out together or hang out a ton, but like we're cordial, we live together, we're friendly, we chat. This is when Tinder was like first a thing, and it was kind of like weird to like have a dating app or like talk to anyone from a dating app. But she convinced me to get it because she had met a few guys on there, and like I wanted to meet a guy, whatever. So I downloaded Tinder, and I met this guy who I ended up dating for 2 years, that was my craziest relationship ever. So I will tell you about that in another episode. If you want to hear about it, let me know. But anyway, I don't think she was expecting me to get a boyfriend from Tinder, and she was not happy that I had a boyfriend. Like she was so, you know, when you like are telling a friend something and you can just tell like they are not happy for you, they're not supporting you. Like whenever you say anything positive, they're just like, their whole energy shifts. Like her whole energy shifted with me so hard when I got a boyfriend. And it wasn't because like, look, I've been in other roommate situations in the past where like I am living with someone and then their boyfriend like moves in, and that's a nightmare in itself, where their boyfriend's like overstaying their time. My boyfriend literally never came over because we shared a room, first of all. I think he came over like one time and hung out on the couch when she wasn't even home, but like he was never ever ever there. So it wasn't that. She was just like pissed off that I got a boyfriend, I think, and she didn't. That is at least how I viewed it in the vibe that I was getting. And she started to get a lot more hostile with me. I don't even remember like exact examples. I just know it got to a point a few months into living together where I was kind of like, she was always lecturing me. Like whenever I would get home, there would be a lecture about something. And it got to the point where I was like, look, bro, like we're just going to live together and like be cordial. We do not need to be lecturing each other every 2 seconds. Like, if you have a problem with something I'm doing, like tell me, but I don't need, like, I would get home from class and get lectured in my kitchen for like 20 minutes by her in a way like she was like acting like my mother. So it was just like, it was too much. So I literally told her like, I think like at this point we're not going to be friends. We're just going to live together, and that's okay. Let's just be like respectful of each other and share the space. Keep in mind, we're still sharing a room at this point. So then while this is all going on, I get an opportunity to move out into a different apartment because Celia had a space open up in the apartment she was living in. And I just thought it would have been so fun to live with Celia. But and I was going to find someone who my roommate approved, obviously, because they would be sharing a room. Like, I would never, if she didn't approve of the person, like, I would not leave, because obviously, like, that would be an uncomfortable situation to share a room with someone you didn't know. And I totally get that. And I would only move out if she was comfortable with the person. So I told her that. She got so angry at the idea of me moving out and living with Celia, because she knew I was going to go live with Celia. And I would totally get it if what I'm going to tell you next didn't happen. If I put myself in her shoes, like, and my roommate was moving out, like, yeah, I'd feel awkward if someone was, like, going to sublease my apartment. But I was, like, going to make sure, like, she liked the person. If not move out, whatever. But, like, I do get, like, being kind of pissed off about that. But the second that the room was filled in Celia's apartment and she found out that I could no longer live with Celia, she was like, yeah, you should move out. Like, find someone to sublease your space. And I was like, that is weird as hell. Now you're, like, so adamant for me to move out. And it's, I think, because, like, she also really wanted to be friends with Celia. And I think she felt, like, completely just, like, rejected, and as if she would be completely out of the loop if I lived with Celia. And that makes me, like, feel sad and bad. But also, it's just kind of weird. And, like, we did not like each other. It was so uncomfortable living together. And I had found, like, a few people to sublease the apartment before, but now it's hard because now I don't have a place to move into, and it's hard. It was, like, a hard timeline to try to find a new place and also find someone who's okay to sublease with sharing a room with someone, and also make sure she likes and vibes with the person. So I ended up not moving out. Our solution came to me just moving out of the bedroom, and I bought this curtain that I, like, installed on the wall that separated our, like, tiny little living room space. And so she got to keep the bedroom with the closet and the closed door and, like, all the privacy, and I moved into the living room because we could not share rooms anymore. Like, it just got to be too much. And so my new bedroom was just, it had enough space for a twin bed and a nightstand, and then I had to store all my clothes, like, underneath the bed. And this curtain offered zero privacy, obviously, because it's a curtain. And this is where Celia and I, like, made the joke that, like, we got, like, scared she was literally gonna, like, kill us, because she would literally sit outside the, like, curtain at the dining table that we had, not doing anything, just staring at the wall for, like, literally hours. Whenever Celia was the only person I ever had come over, and she would just sit outside and listen to us. And I remember one time we could, like, feel that she was sitting out there, and Celia and I, like, waited, like, as long as possible. Like, we just, like, decided to not talk, like, to see, like, how long she would stay there. And she stayed there for literally an hour and a half. We finally come out because we're gonna, like, leave for some reason, and she, like, screams at us the second we get out. So now I'm in the situation where, like, I have this, like, tiny little room curtain. She's always listening to, like, everything I'm doing. It's, like, very weird and uncomfortable. And at this point, like, I'm barely even ever home or living at home, because I just felt, like, too uncomfortable to be there. And I basically was living at my boyfriend's house. Like, I would go, like, weeks and weeks and weeks without sleeping there. I'd just go back to, like, shower and get stuff. And a few months into this curtain situation, I bought a wardrobe, and this wardrobe caused so much drama. It was this tiny little wardrobe because I genuinely did not have enough space to store my clothes in my room, because my room was literally maybe, like, 5 feet across and, like, 7-8 feet wide. Like, it was not a room. And so I got this wardrobe and I put it right outside of the curtain, and it wasn't, like, an ugly wardrobe, and I really just, I had no other choice. She had a huge closet in her bedroom that I had to move all my clothes out of, obviously, because we weren't going to share the room anymore. And the second I got the wardrobe, she freaked the hell out. And this is when things got so weird. I was literally like, I cannot spend another second in this apartment. She started having her mom come over and lecture me. And I will never forget the first time her mom came over. She called me out of my room, aka my curtain, and lectured me for, like, 30 minutes about how unreasonable it was that I put a wardrobe outside the curtain, and how upsetting it was to her daughter. And, like, my roommate just stood next to her mom the whole time being like, yeah, like, tell her. It was the most bizarre experience I've ever experienced in my life, because we were 19 years old, like, living on our own. Like, our moms should not be getting involved. And she started getting her mom involved in everything. And she would, like, make up these blatant lies. She'd tell her mom that I was having really loud sex in the apartment and it was making her uncomfortable. And then she would have her mom call my mom and tell my mom that. And first of all, my mom was like, I don't really know what to say to this. Second of all, I never had sex in that apartment. If she must know, I never like, I had a curtain as a bedroom and she sat outside the curtain at all times. Like, she made everyone feel so uncomfortable. So I didn't even hang out in the apartment, let alone have sex in the apartment. So that was like a blatant lie, which was just like an uncomfortable then conversation that everyone had to have together that wasn't true. But it was like, she was like trying to get me in trouble. It was just like a weird situation, like out of a Lifetime movie, like no privacy, sat outside the curtain. Her mom's coming over and lecturing me all the time. She's like got this weird like obsessive energy going on. I've never been in such a weird situation in my entire life, and I hope she's doing well now. And I think probably she was just like kind of like going through it and maybe like wanted to be friends and then got jealous when I got a boyfriend and was jealous I had a best friend and whatever. But I tried my best to be nice with her until like I'm a very nice person. It got so weird so fast. So that was like the weirdest roommate situation I've ever had. And I ended up moving out in May. The lease went until September, but she like her family like agreed to like just pay like the full rent because they also, before they agreed to this, like they wanted to like set and have like family meetings where like her parents and my parents and me and her would like sit down and have meetings. And I was like, this is weird. Like, we are 19 in college. You do not need to be having like family meetings, and we also don't need to be friends. Like, we don't live, like, we are just living together, whatever. So I end up moving out in May because like they are going to pay like the full rent for the summer, and I move into Celia's apartment because she was going to Nantucket and then going abroad for a year. So I moved into her apartment, and she didn't really know her roommates. I didn't really know them. Like, they kind of knew each other, but they didn't really hang out. But I moved in because I loved her apartment. It was really cute. It was like, I think $100 more, and it was in Back Bay on Cortez Street. I think it was 21 Cortez Street. And it was like a very cute apartment. The structure was very cute, but when I moved in the first day, it was horrifying because these roommates were just like literally disgusting. I don't think they like even owned a vacuum or a mop or really any cleaning supplies. The sink was like, it looked like a frat house, like a really disgusting frat house. The sink was not cleaned. The toilet would always clog, and there like often would never be toilet paper in the bathroom. And then there wasn't really a living room. There was like this common area space with nothing in it. I ended up putting like the day bed that I had. I moved that and put that in there. And we tried to make it a common space, but it wasn't really. And then the kitchen, oh my God, the kitchen was disgusting. First of all, everyone would chain smoke cigarettes in the kitchen. So the whole apartment like just like constantly reeked of cigarettes. And there were just piles and piles of dishes in the kitchen sink because it was 4 girls living in this apartment together, including myself. So the kitchen was always disgusting. The fridge was, oh my God, there would be rotting food in there, like months old, like Tupperware containers of like leftovers. It was just a disgusting habitat to move into, and I am such a clean freak, and I tried my best to always keep it clean, but like no one could ever keep that place clean. I was cleaning up after like 3 girls and 1 girl's boyfriend, and it was too much. It was just always very gross. And there was just like weird, this is kind of like also just like typical roommate drama, I guess, but like, I mean, people would be passive aggressive about cleaning, including myself, which I hate that so much. I hate like living with someone. I feel like it always, whenever cleaning comes up, it always turns into this weird passive aggressive awkward situation. So there'd always be that. One of the girls who may see this, because I know she does follow me on TikTok, and she did unblock me to tell me like she was proud of my success, but she had like her boyfriend move in with her, which like none of us were okay with because it was already 1 bathroom with 4 girls, and now it's 1 bathroom with 4 girls and a guy. And there would be like stupid fights about toilet paper because like her boyfriend would use a lot of toilet paper, and so then everyone started like hoarding toilet paper in their own rooms, and her boyfriend would come out and like yell at us because they were both like constantly on Adderall and not sleeping, so they would come and like yell at us for like talking like at normal levels, like just like kind of like normal issues. And I remember one night, like they came out of the room and were so angry that this girl picked up, my grandpa got me, like he gave me this like nice lamp of his that he had in his house, and she picked up this lamp and just smashes it as hard as she can against the wall. And I was like, are you actually kidding me? So they would just like get in these like very violent arguments. And then I was friends with like the girl I shared a wall with, like we didn't really talk. She was just kind of like passive aggressive weird. And then the other girl who lived like across my way, like we became like really, really tight, but she also got like kind of like obsessive and possessive over me. And if I had any other friends, she'd get really pissed off. And I've run into this like several times in my life where like I have friends and they get like so pissed if I have other friends. And that was kind of the situation. I remember like one time, for example, my parents came to Boston and like we're visiting for the weekend, and like we went to dinner, and she was like so upset that I was like away from the apartments for so long. And like I was literally hanging out with my parents, but she got like jealous and annoyed that I was like literally even hanging out with my own parents. So, and you know what? I think she like is a sweet girl. I think she was just like going through things, but that was just like typical girl roommate drama. I mean, I think like the smashing lamps and like the screaming at each other. Oh, and then my senior year, I just lived with Celia and this like guy from my high school who we went to high school and middle school with, like he lived with us too. It was fine. I mean, it wasn't actually great. He had his girlfriend like move into the apartment, and his girlfriend like hated us and they both didn't like us. We went from like being friends to like all like me and Celia would hang out, and Celia and I had so much fun living together, but he kind of like ruined the vibe because his girlfriend like did not like us and like he didn't like us. It was like a little awkward, but like that was fine. But I don't know. I think I'm just like not good at living with people, and I recognize it about myself. I think I've had some weird roommate situations. But I don't know. I don't know how you feel, but I just like, I'm like so torn because like I could get like a fireplace if like I moved in with my friend, but I feel like living with people ruins friendships for sure. I don't know. Like there's some nights where like I maybe want to have people over and have my friends over, but then like maybe my roommate won't, or like vice versa. And like I kind of just like living by my own rules and my own schedule and my own vibe. And I think I'm selfish in that way, and I recognize that. But I think it's okay to be selfish in that way, and it's okay to want to have your own space and do whatever the hell you want. And I am very used to doing whatever the hell I want right now. So I'm like trying to figure out what I'm going to do next year. But it's November. I have like many months to figure it out. But I think next episode I want to talk to you about like living alone and being comfortable just like being alone, because that was such a huge journey for me. And I mean, like, not even just living alone, but like also being single. I've been single for 4 years and like have lived alone for 5. Like, I feel like I really have it down, and I'm like, I love being alone, and I used to hate being alone, and being alone would make me so uncomfortable. So if you want to hear about that in the next episode, let me know. And like always, if you have any episodes you would like to hear in the future, DM me. And if you have messaged me, your messages mean so much to me and like warm my heart so much. Some of your messages literally make me cry, and I really love you and I'm so grateful for you. And yeah, I will see you next week.